off.
And we are, as he realizes we have just started recording and we stop. Everyone, welcome back. Welcome back to the episode. Hopefully you are enjoying what's been coming with the new and improved Sam Portland podcast. And if you want nausea S&C, then this is probably not the place to be. But if you want awesomeness and speed geekery and training and business and life and epicness, then you are at the right place. So today I have a good friend of mine and an awesome coach, Coach Joe VDM in the house. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. The reason why I got Joe on is for a couple of reasons. The first one, he's got a serious training history himself as well, and another really high caliber, high quality coach that didn't go the pro sport route as well, and has carved out some really good training opportunities and coaching opportunities as well. Great episode about that in Mike West a few episodes ago. Check that out. He's another coach that works a lot with athletic principles, athletes, and helping people without the restrictions of pro sport environment, which is really, really important. So, Joe, why don't you talk us through your athletic career, because everyone knows every S&C coach is a failed athlete. So talk us about your athletic.
I'm not a failed athlete, mate. I succeeded at every level, so I reject that. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I got into training because I wasn't good enough. I was like, no, mate, I was actually great.
Yes.
You know what I did? I picked the wrong sport. It's the story of my life. Should have chose something with some money in it, but I chose all the wrong sports all the way through, it seems like. So I mean, in terms of like athletic stuff from the very beginning, very much multi-sport at school. So I mean, even all the way back to like prep school, it was the usual like cricket, football, rugby. I played a lot of squash, judo, kayaking, all that stuff from like a really early age. Squash was really the main sport in my sort of childhood. If you want to see an 8-year-old swing a squash racket like a battle axe, that was me. Just like raw aggression. It's like this angry child. So that was my main sport there. And then going into secondary school, again, it's the classic, rugby, hockey. I hated hockey. Hockey's horrendous. But yeah, like all those sort of team sports. Like, why would anyone want to spend an hour running bent over? Like, it's just like deeply uncomfortable. So all different types of field sports, and then I started strength training at school as well. So I think I've said this before. Like, I have a really vivid memory of like cranking out leg extensions as like a 13-year-old, like trying to impress like some girl who's just like not at all impressed by this borderline pubescent child. So then going off into university, really that was where I got into weight training in a big way, and somewhat, I guess, in the reverse to how a lot of people get into S&C, I sort of got into doing higher level sport through strength training. Which is probably like the wrong way around in a way, but I obviously had that multi-sport background, so I was able to pick up things quite quickly.
Yeah.
Got into American football, played American football at UEA for 3 years, got into the GB squad off the back of that in 2012, so when I was 22, and played a season at London Blitz as well in 2014, 2015. And then at the back end of 2015, after a significant, chronic kind of like groin issue, and then also having a labral tear, and I had a few concussions. One of them was quite a big one. It's like, actually, it was like the last game I played in up in East Kilbride. I like forgot 6 months of my life for about 2-3 hours.
Yeah,
and I thought
bad.
Working full time at that point, I was PTing, and the hours and the demands of the sport, and then also just training like a complete meathead at that point, basically doing like off-season lifting in season. There's an 88-yard touchdown run where I literally start pulling up at the 20-yard line because my hamstrings were still smoked from doing deadlifts like 2 days earlier. And you literally just see that. And the best part about it is the camera's following me. I've run 88 yards. So it was literally, the field is 90 yards long, because that's how we do things. Not 100-yard field. Like, we've got 90 because that's all we could fit. And and you literally, like, the camera like pans past me because it's tracking me all the way. And then suddenly I just slow down for no reason. The camera keeps going and it has to like come back. Still got the old touchdown then. But yeah, I literally had memories of at the end of that season just not being able to like climb the stairs at Oxford Circus Station, just being so tired, and not being able to do like a box jump, like demonstrate a box jump. My body was just like, absolutely not. And I was only 24, 25 at the time. And that was me, like, looking ahead, seeing I knew guys who had like really major disc herniations in their neck. The concussion's less of an issue at that time, but it was also the ACL stuff. And I knew a guy who was basically like lined up for a hip replacement at like 30 something. And you just think, this is an amateur sport that we're now playing essentially like at professional level. The season in American football, as you know, is far too long. It's ridiculously long. It's from January until the end of September, basically. So if you make it all the way to the final bowl game, it's like basically a 9-month season, which is absurd. And I got to the end of that first season and I had barely recovered from that groin. And I was in that last game, I was basically like strapped up my thigh with a powerlifting wrap for the whole game so that I could, and after about halfway through, I was like, I'm completely fucked. Like, I just wasn't able to move. And you just think, do you know what? This is probably not worth it at this point. And that was where I pulled the plug on that and went full time into coaching.
Yeah, that's fair enough as well. Like, concussion, I think concussion is like, you know, when you get a bang on the head and you forget 6 months of your life, then that's a really good time to be like, there's some reconsiderations off of that, and the way that, and also just the way that some of these sports can break your body down is just frightening. When we had Ed Colson on the last episodes, his first year as a senior player at Bath tore his hamstring 7 times in one season because of the demands of training. But he wasn't apparently they were told he wasn't robust enough. But you know, that's professional sport, the meat market of professional sport. So I think you made a good decision there. And you said something that strength training opened up higher levels of sport for you. What did you mean? What do you mean by that?
So I think that the stuff I never really struggled with was the ability to move and the athleticism side of things, like the coordination side of things. And that clearly, I think, partly genetic, because I mean, I knew I was throwing and catching at like a precociously like young age. But the stuff that I'd say like held me back between like say 16 and 18 is that I just literally wasn't as physically developed. Like we all know there's like 18-year-olds who look like they're like 30, you know, like full grown beard, you know, like 6'4" or something. And I was absolutely not that. So between the ages of 18 and 22, I gained about 23 kilos ish of like lean body mass. I went from the 73 to about 95 kilos over that kind of like 3-4 year period. And that was all obviously strength training, and that alone, that sort of dramatic change that you can achieve early on with just general strength, which if you're in an organized setup, you've been doing from a much younger age. So, you know, you could sort of take advantage of puberty in that sense. So that was really it for me. I basically just became a completely different sort of animal. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. And I guess that lends itself well to, you know, size matters in collision-based sports, evasion-based sports, and especially American football, and especially in the running back position. You know,
and also I think personality as well, because the way I like to play the game was as a downhill runner. So I really enjoyed contact and looking for contact and finding ways to essentially like break down defenders over the course of a game, so that when you had the opportunity, so like the first like 4 or 5 times, you don't even take the space, you just headbutt a guy in the rib cage, and there's like a certain number of times that someone's going to deal with that, especially when you're dealing with like cornerbacks or safeties or whatever, who maybe don't have the same physicality as, you know, like linemen or linebackers or whatever it is, and then you can see them hesitate, and then it's just, you know, off to the races. And that was the part of it that I really enjoyed, was seeing that position as you know, someone who could initiate contact rather than just take it.
Yes. Yeah. Taking the space, which is awesome, and so it kind of like, having known you for a long time now, like that, all of that experience has really shaped the way that you coach and the way that you pursue coaching as well. And so, first of all, I mean, like my first experience of rehabbing anything was rehabbing my own broken leg. And so, was your first experience of rehabbing your own injuries?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, I think the one that probably in some ways taught me what not to do was that groin injury, because I spent an absolute fortune on essentially like passive therapy or like shit physiotherapy, where it's like people sticking needles in you and like giving you a fucking rub down, the old rub and tug, right? And like the electro acupuncture, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, turns out my groin's still shit. Like, and you go through that process so many times at like 50 quid a pop. And then you're like, this is like clearly not working. And I think also I had some back issues as well from essentially just training like a ridiculous amount. And finding a different way of going about that. And then also, to be fair, with the back stuff, I started working with another strength coach, who we both know, Hanny, which really like, cleaned up that stuff. And a lot of that stuff was essentially just creating more like lumbar pelvic stability, which is really train the hip like from all directions and make it strong, make it stable, or give it better control. I know people get a bit pissy about using the word stability because we're all children, but no, it's that kind of thing.
If there's one thing the S&C industry knows how to do, is argue over words.
Yeah.
It really doesn't fucking matter. It's like, don't be that person. We get what you mean. It doesn't matter what preference you have for the term.
It's fine.
So when you say that, I'm going to hit up Annie, get him on.
100%.
He's a beautiful freak of nature. So that groin injury, like really,
I've had a few at this point, but I think no more, please. I think that's enough. So I think that one was obviously essentially, and I can't remember exactly what triggered that. It was basically doing 140 kilo back squat for reps like 2 days after a game or something. And I felt that straight away on the left side, and I was like, and I didn't have the tools to deal with it at that time. But then I think for example, like the one that was most recent, which was back in 2022, which was, you know, I put my hand up and be like, push things a little bit too far on a 150 kilo split squat, reverse lunge, sorry. And I essentially avulsed my adductor and gave myself a 1 centimeter inguinal hernia. And I couldn't walk or put my socks on or anything like that. And within, you know, basically, well, I was back doing like some decent speed stuff within 30 days. I was essentially back to like full sprinting and change of direction within 6 months. And then when I had an MRI around just over a year later, they showed no pathology at all. So there was no evidence of any damage to that tendon, and the hernia had healed. and that was all through essentially just like phased rehab that I built myself. And I've got a really nice template actually like off that. But I would advise probably don't do that yourself in order to build a program. It's probably better ways doing it.
You talk about I had a few adductor issues and osteitis and stuff, and I had a we're back. It's dropping out today. It happened on Ed's call as well. Yeah. So I was going to say, I'll start again. So as you speak about, okay, yeah. So so I had osteitis pubis, and I had a really bad adductor tear. I was playing rugby, and I stepped in off my wing, and the guy hit my leg and just opened me like a can, and I tore my adductor the other side. And it was just like bang, because I was just pincered up, and that tendon, that short adductor tendon, was just not good for a long time, and it was actually it made me laugh because I got clear of it, and I gave myself a reactive tendinopathy having sex.
I'll do it. Yeah,
it's because they become so fragile. I just remember, I was like, I can't get myself.
I knew a guy. That's way off topic, but I knew a guy who tore his mesh. He had a hernia, and he tore his mesh doing that.
Yeah, that is. But like when you're Saturday night having a great time, doing the business.
You're a young man, Sam. You're a young man.
Real man on top, and then it was like bang. I just had my hip in the wrong place. I was digging for treasure, mate. So the but it shows how, like, in all fairness,
adductor injuries are without a doubt the most, I would say, like, underrated, like in terms of pain, like underappreciated. It honestly feels like you've been stabbed, and then back pain is obviously like such a big thing because it's like the second biggest cause of pain after headaches. Like, just think of like an adductor issue as like the back pain of the pelvis. It is absolutely horrendous. Yes. Like, you cannot move. Yeah. Like, if you open up your hip at all, it feels like someone's just slipped a knife into your body.
Yeah,
and it is absolutely horrendous. But again, because it's provided as just a soft tissue thing, it's also incredibly trainable. So I was, and this is the thing as well. It's actually it's the two sides of the sword, right? So with me, definitely should have done what I did. But then also that evening, I was on the bike, like literally like turning over the legs, and you can go, is that really necessary? It's like, well, my mindset is whatever you can do pain-free as early on as possible, like with being mindful of load, being mindful of range, being mindful of tempo, like all of the sensible caveats that any good coach or physio would say. Like, if you can do that, then you probably should, because at least then from a psychological perspective, at the very least, you are moving forward. And I was pushing a heavy sled. Well, actually, I've got a pulley, so I was using a pulley, like literally like the next day, and I was just walking with a pulley, extensive pulley walks, pain-free. Obviously at a higher range. Yeah, like all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and it's so, like, because if you think about how vulnerable the pelvis can be and how, like, through what you're talking about there, it also shows you how I don't think in the rehab space we give the body enough credit. So into what it can do, like non-operative care and conservative management, there's like a lot of ACL stuff depending on the tear. There's loads of guys that are just churning out non-operative rehabs, and I've had my recent experience with my hamstring. But I was speaking to someone the other day, and his friend had a semitendinosus avulsion, hamstring avulsion, right? Went for a rescan 6 months later, and it grafted to the semimembranosus.
Wow.
It just stuck itself on that instead, and healed. He's back playing sport again.
Yeah, and it's probably fine.
Yeah, absolutely fine. It's great.
And that doesn't surprise me at all, because you hear about people who've like supposedly had a full rupture of the ACL, and the point is that if you do that, like, you are supposed to do preoperative rehab, and the results of doing preoperative rehab versus just doing post-op compared to a control group are significantly better, because surprise, surprise, like, if you're in better shape going in, you're in better shape coming out. Like, and obviously all like the neurocognitive like sides of it as well, because it's not just like a peripheral injury, it's a neural injury as well.
And you've hit the nail on the head there. And so, you know, what you talk about, what you actually highlight, and that learning curve, the expensive learning curve of going through just remedial care, thinking that that's the thing that's going to help, or the soft tissue, the needling, the electrode, and all of that stuff is 10%. If you're not loading, if you're not, you know, because you say you tore your adductor, you're straight on the bike, within 48 hours, that adductor is a completely different groin compared to one that's just been left to shrivel up and just become neurologically.
Yeah, exactly. And even if it's just so mine was obviously connective tissue tear, but the point is, like, nothing happens in isolation. So whenever I tore at that time, I would have torn like probably quite a lot of muscle as well.
Yeah.
So even if the people say, oh, but you know, something that's really low level, it's not enough to cause, you know, an adaptation effect on the connective tissues. Like, I don't give a shit, like, because there's a lot of torn muscle in there, and the point is, like, you're trying to like realign fibers, but also like regrow capillaries.
Yes.
Like, it's the polarization of the vascular tissue as well. So if you can just get a handle on that, like, that's going to adapt really quickly. Like, relatively speaking, and it's still going to feed that area. So you can still have strong muscles, and obviously we know if we've got a stronger muscular system, like, our susceptibility to pain is going to be lower as well, because the contractile structures are taking more of the load.
And you know, just thinking there about how I remember someone who was training to be a physio years ago said to me, is that physios are taught everything from a principles of pain, whereas S&C are taught from principles of performance. But a lot of physios don't understand are those principles of pain when they're trying to rehab. Because I think what you do well is when you combine those two, as you just said there, it's like we can move something that could take 2 weeks, and we can put that into 3 days by being on the bike and then walking a pulley, and then, you know, what is the next level that opens up as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think the thing is like, I'm a bit dubious about, like, quote unquote accelerated rehab. Like, the reality is, it's just, that is actually just rehab. Like, and it's going to take
doing it too slow.
Yeah, we've just been doing it too shit. Like, and people, and with the ACL stuff, people talk about like doing accelerated rehab and like come back in 6 months. It's like, that's probably not a good idea, to be fair. But like, it's just because there is a rate at which those tissues are going to heal. But the reality is, like, that 9 to 12 month mark is probably like pretty good. And the point is, by the time you get to that 9 months, you should be an absolute savage. Like, you should be an absolute weapon. Like, you should be extremely strong on one leg, right? Just in a general sense. But then like sprinting, jumping, bounding, hopping, and like the movement and your ability to impart force into the floor should be like massive. And you should be able to see and hear basically like no difference between limbs.
Yeah. And I think what you've learned and what you've done so well, forgive me, right, if I'm wrong, is about, you know, the injuries that you've suffered and being able to, because of your mindset as well. I think you've touched on that as well, that mindset of being progressive, proactive, just being a savage about things. do you think that served you in good stead with developing quote unquote accelerated rehab processes?
Yeah, but I think the reality is, like, I always like to set the tone, and the reality is, like, patient. Well, I say patient, like, clients will look at you and they feed off your energy, right? And when you give an energy of, like, you are capable, you're doing the right thing, you're allowed to push hard. Like, I always think one of the best cues I ever gave an ACL rehab girl was, like, basically stop being such a pussy. And, like, the context for that was she was doing essentially like a single leg squat on a box.
Yeah.
And basically just, like, super nervous about dropping below like a 90, like 100-degree range. Yeah. And I was like, just stop being such a pussy. And luckily she was American, so she was like, like, going for it. And she was like, right, let's fucking go. And then she just, like, started, like, cranking out reps.
Yeah.
Like, that was obviously a situation where I knew her personality well enough to sort of, like, know that would slide. But it's that thing of, like, I mean, I've got another female client at the moment who's had like 5 operations on one leg. Wow. And which is to do with like a genetic, like, medical condition. But she's had basically like 2 on a hip, 2 on a knee, 1 on an ankle. And so 1 on a hip, 2 on a knee, 1 on an ankle. And the reality is, like, she is broad jumping over 2 meters. Like, she's hopping, she's bounding, she's lifting, in excess of 100% of her body weight, like split squat, like all those sorts of things. And most people, if they're not exposed to someone who's essentially is confident loading people, they will just wrap themselves in cotton wool. And you hear it all the time. It's like, oh, I've got a bad back from that thing that I did 15 years ago. It's like, well, to be honest, mate, that actually sounds like it's on you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Without a doubt. And you, like, there's something that you were saying that's really about being able to push someone who's confident in pushing training, pushing load, pushing through the phases. Obviously, traffic light systems are easy for people to understand, but I think the way you get out of a red phase is to push through it, not wait for the body to adapt. Because in those early phases, I don't know if you see it the same way, is that you're so far behind the fucking 8 ball that rest is not going to help you.
No. And the other thing is like just being able to, to take like a knee, for example, or any knee like issue, to be fair, it's like you can absolutely just smoke the other leg, right? And get that neural cross bridging effect. And so even if you can't do, like a bunch of things, like the reality is you can still do like hundreds of hip lifts of like in different angles, like in all directions. You can still find ways to like get load in some form into the quad or hamstring or calf or whatever it is. I think sleds are like massively underused in rehab generally. It's like ACL rehab especially. Like people talk about like normalizing gait and all these sorts of things. It's like, well, put them on a sled and just get them to like walk with a sled. It's like it's incredibly safe. And the reality is it's just loaded walking. Like it's a really good place to start.
Yeah. And without a doubt.
And things you can literally just drop that into like almost any lower body like rehab situation. If you like, you can have a back, a hip, hamstring, like calf. Probably be a bit like obviously like sensible with that, but that's just like a really good option because you can load that up to kingdom come. And push the sled until you're blue in the face. And the reality is, it's still going to be an effective strength stimulus, and it's still going to be effective aerobic stimulus to an extent. Appreciate. Like depending on like work rest ratios and things like that.
Yeah. So for those who maybe listen to this, I've never heard of neural cross bridging, can you explain that for people?
In simple terms, because the body's essentially trying to maintain balance, if you train one limb to a high level, the other limb without being trained will still get stronger to an extent. That's my basic understanding of it.
Yeah. So then what does that look like? Say someone has, for argument, let's just MCL, can't really load that knee, what are we doing the other side, what rep range is, like what are the X's and O's of that for people, so they can just visualize their programming.
So essentially, if you think from the perspective of how can I make plan B look as close to plan A as possible, you are still going to want to create some sort of like multi-joint stress. So a really easy example in that case would be like using a leg press, like a single leg press, where say you've done your right knee, you can absolutely like smoke your left, and then use like single joint work to like build the link. So leg extension, seated leg curl, seated calf raise, or standing calf raise, things like that. And then even from a conditioning perspective, like if you need to, like an assault bike's a great option because you can basically like prop up one of your legs on the footrest and work 3 limbs.
Yeah. And assault bikes suck.
Yeah, but they're great. I mean, they're useful. They are great. Yeah, useful for. And then, as we felt, I mean, I've seen also. So another option is like even if you don't have an assault bike, so obviously like seated ski erg, or you can use a rower. So one of the things I did with someone a few years ago was I used a rower and had the ACL leg on a slider on the floor.
Yeah.
It would just slide off to the side like no problem.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And so just for that, you said the leg press example. So the uninvolved leg with leg pressing for max strength or hypertrophy or whatever we're trying to achieve, because some people may think, oh, we just need to do volume on that. No, we need to train that to improve it. And then the other side is we're using single joint exercises to build the links, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. So for a lot of coaches out there that and conservative physios would be like that, just don't need to do anything, when a day is a long time to lose.
Yeah, and the reality is like I think of it as well from just like a global perspective, where it's like a healthier, stronger person who also has a positive mindset towards training is going to heal faster and experience less pain.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Makes absolutely perfect sense. And you can, as a coach, you can influence that by creating wins all the time.
Yeah,
like Pavlovian psychology and rehab is so huge. It's really important. Like, it is literally like keep feeding the process, keep win after win after win.
So when you're saying like training is just stacking successful sessions. Exactly. It's just stacking successful sessions, like phase on phase, and you can be really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You can be quite like simple about it. Like I just like good old fashioned like 4-week phases of training, where it's like, cool, we're going to focus on these things for the next 4 weeks. Do it, execute it, actually work hard, don't fanny around, right? Assess where you're at in 4 weeks. Do the next 4-week block, and make small like a change. Because the thing is, you realistically with someone like that, if you're seeing them in person, or even if it's like a weekly basis, like online, you can make changes within that block to like move them forward. But it doesn't have to be like a big complicated thing, because there's obviously like limitations as well.
Yeah, and I'm not, to be honest, like I fucking hate S&C for what they've done with periodization and programming, because talk about like arguing over words, we've completely forgotten how to structure training effectively. And by using undulated, conjugate, vertical integration, like a lot of people will talk about using vertical integration, but forget that it's not actually a system found in sport preparation. It's founded in computer science.
Yeah.
So it's like, come on. And what you can do, and the big part that you make there is, well, let's target specific adaptations we want every 21 to 28 days, and then we're just, because we can get them if we can focus on individual parts, whilst bringing up the whole. And I think that's the misunderstanding of rehab.
You can still do things in like a linear fashion. Like, it still works. And like, yes, like there's going to be the element when as people progress, there's going to be like more of like a concurrent type thing in there, because they need to be like prepared for like multiple demands. But just practicing like one thing and getting really good at it, especially like that early mid stage where was with like a knee, it's like you basically need to rebuild someone's leg.
And with that, you say like in season for sports, like for sport practice, the sport practice and the competition schedule is undulating in nature. So I use linear progressions in the S&C. So they work really well, because it's the counter to it. Which is misunderstood in itself. But there's a really good book that tells you how to do that as well.
It's become really it became really like in vogue to kind of like shit on like big picture planning. And it's like a really classic example of people just like diving into an extreme and being like, this is my camp, like do like bottom up only. And it's like, well, actually, like being like these two things operate well together. Like doesn't have to be like one or the other. Just because you've written a 12-week plan doesn't mean that you can't change it a bit as you go. I lost him.
And we're back.
Where'd you lose me?
Big picture planning.
Oh yeah. And it's this thing against essentially doing like longer term planning for clients and athletes. Because you're going to have to change things. Like, I know I'm going to have to change things, but I'm creating a framework. Like I can do, amazingly, I can actually do two things at once. I know that's like a groundbreaking concept. Like because it's a very strange, and the only reason that I think that exists is because I think there probably have been issues where people like essentially like sports scientists or like lab coat type people, people who wear ties to work, right? They create a plan there, and they essentially like really have to feel like they have to stick to it, which obviously like isn't necessarily the case. But you're always individualizing all of the time. Like the number of times I've gone into a session with a plan for the day, and then you have to just change it like that because someone walks in and they're like ashen face, like red rimmed eyes from their day, or they've slept like 2 hours or whatever it is. That's just sensible training. A lot of these things don't have to be either or, but people will really put their boot firmly in one camp. And I think a lot of it is driven by the need to like make a big splash on like a social media thing. It's like it's all marketing. Like it's got nothing to do with training.
Without a doubt. And that's kind of real world example. Like 2 weeks ago, so I had to change venue with Juicy, and so I had to change venue with him, and he called me up. He was like, fucking traffic shit. And I was like, how long? He's like, it's going to take me 2 hours to get here. I was like, turn around, go home. Because what is the point of driving 2 hours to then do a speed session? He was like, really? I was like, go home. Just go home, and we'll start again next week. Because that like being able to let go, when you understand adaptation, you understand the process. No one's going to like a post that I said, speed session with my guy today. I sent him home because he got stuck in traffic and it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, do this stretchy, bendy, shitty thing that is going to
get so much of that as well.
Retune your spinal engine. No. No. And like even like I get it with a lot of hamstring stuff, and I like to hear your opinion on this with the ACL stuff that you're doing. It doesn't like to go into these ranges, so we just take it there really slowly. Well, the problem isn't that they don't like it doing it slowly. The problem is that it manifests at fucking 8 or 9 meters per second. They don't like it. So you're not going to solve it with a resistance band and a fucking Swiss ball.
Ping. Sorry.
I hit the jackpot.
There you go. No, that's my it's just that I haven't turned off.
What have you found with the ACL stuff? Because I know you've found like a massive back again.
You asked a question.
Yeah, this is the closed question. So what have you, given that example with the stuff that I see with hamstring rehab, and you talked a little bit about it earlier with don't be a fucking pussy. With the ACL stuff that you're doing now, it seems like it's got hold of you. There's something about ACLs that you really, really enjoy doing. I know you're really good at it, but what have you found things that you're doing that are driving that process forward by being a bit more of a savage with the rehab? What have you found has been really working?
I think this is partly probably like the simple sort of like meathead in me. It's like the reality is like the actual like fundamental stuff that you do pre, early, and mid, where it's like rebuilding that leg, like in all ways, in all directions, etc., but really like basically putting meat back on the bone and getting that really strong. So like one of the recent guys I had, Jack, we basically got him up to 180 kilo single leg press at like 90 kilos body weight. He's doing multiple sets of 6. Now I appreciate that the reality is like that's not something that like every single person's like going to be able to achieve, but it's literally just stacking things in a really simple linear way where it's like, are you generally very, very, very strong? And not just that, but are you also very, very, very strong on one leg? You know, and then from there it's like, right, cool, ballistics, plyometrics, simple stuff like, you know, like broad, vertical. Can you bound? Can you multi-directional bound? Can you multi-directional hop? Like, can we build up to like a decent level of intensity on those things? What is the asymmetry like between legs? And in Jack's case, he basically got his interleg asymmetry was down below 1.2%.
Yeah, that's huge.
So like, yeah, I love the quote that he shared. It was basically like, I'm a C+ athlete, but I'm symmetrical as fuck. Like, I thought that was so good.
That is so good.
I think like the point is like once you can do those sort of like quite general things to be able to sport, the actual like return to play stuff is essentially just training. Like it's just like, you know, and you obviously like returning people to practice and monitoring like intensity and minutes and all those sorts of things, because that's where, you know, a lot of people will start to fall down. But I honestly think that a big reason why people fail to return to sport or return to like any sort of competitive level, it's that they didn't do well like right at the beginning. And I love that weightlifting quote. It's like a Russian weightlifting quote, like work on the problem closest to the floor. Yeah. And if you actually, and you can, to be honest with you, the people that are successful in ACL rehab, you can take a look at them and you can usually tell like why they're successful. Yeah. Like, you know, and I've trained like a few women as well, and like for this, who've had like hamstring grafts and stuff like that. And the biggest part of their successful return was essentially just getting as strong as possible, and then just managing doing as much like jump training and plyometry stuff as you could, as like realistically like fit in to an office worker's schedule.
Yeah, and do you know what's really interesting is that I find, especially around in the ACL, they become over reliant on isokinetic data and force platform data, and become reactive to that data rather than having a proactive training approach, as you talked about. Yeah. Because you don't need an ISO-K.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. Great, nice to have it. Like, but I can't necessarily afford like a 15 grand machine. You know, it's like, oh, we'll just use the old isokinetic in my shed. But the thing is, like, you can just watch someone bound, especially like bounding and hopping. Like you'll see it straight away. Like how are they cycling a leg? What's the displacement? Like how high is the hip getting? And what does it hit? What does it will sound like when they hit the floor. So if they're good leg, it's just like hammering into the floor, and the other one just sounds like a really slow clap. Then like it's a problem. And then that I really do think like there's a lot of good things that you can do online, but I also think that for stuff like that, like being able to spend time with people in person, like even if it's just like once a month or something like that, where you can just like spend 2 or 3 hours just really getting into things with them, that just massively accelerates their ability to progress. And I also think that's something that people, and it's like a classic, and people don't talk about it in some ways, because I mean, I appreciate everyone's like trying to like push online stuff, and like there's nothing wrong with that. You can get a really good result, but like if you have the facility to see people in person as well, like it is a genuinely massive bonus, and we all know that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you've said there, you know, even if you're you can manage like these complicated rehab cases just every 4 weeks, get them down, get eyes on them, and run the systems. And that's what I really like about the stuff that you do, is that there's no bullshit about the process. It's not fancy or overly fancy, but the fanciness is in the effectiveness. And I think effective training is the thing that we need to be driving more of.
And lastly, there's something that maybe I just want to leave like the listener with as well, when it comes to like any of these things. If it's like general exercises or specific exercises or jumping, bounding, hopping, whatever it is, like people tend to use this with like general exercise. They say like, oh, there's no exercises that you like have to do. But I think another way of looking at that is, why can't you do that?
Yeah.
You know, so for example, like I quite like, especially like the hamstring graphs, like people say, oh, you could just use a seated hamstring curl and like GHD, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to use that. It's like, well, if you can't do a GHD curl, you can't do like 5 or 10 good reps. Like, why is that? Like, what's going on there where there's something like not quite right? And I just like seeing stuff through that almost like that lens of like global, regional, and local stresses.
Oh,
so like big patterns, like still big, but like stuff that's more like upper or lower body dominant, and then getting into like the single joint. And it's like, you look at training through all those layers and then across all velocities and patterns and stuff like that, and you start to build a picture of what this person can and can't do. And then it's like, can they not do that for like a physical reason, like there's a restriction or a genuine inhibition or whatever, or can they not do it for psychological reasons? Like, are they just essentially like afraid? Or is it literally just like basic coaching? Like they can't do it because they just don't know how. They just don't know how. Like, simple as that. So it's like I've seen guys where, you know, they're essentially like shit at bounding, and you think, oh, is that because their ACL's fucked? It's like, no, it's because they're shit at bounding. Like, because that would be the first time that they've actually ever done it. Like, regardless of rehab.
Yeah, man, and I think that's the best place to finish that. So for the listeners, and they want to learn a little bit more, see what you're doing, where can they get in contact with you, find you, stalk you?
So my home address is, I'm joking. So Instagram is coach_Joe VDM. And my email, if you want it, is joevdm@damagecontroltraining.com. That's it.
Perfect. Beautiful. Thanks for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it. Great, insightful call. Lots to take home for everyone listening. So if you are listening, that was fucking good. That was good. You pay good money for that episode. So thank you very much, Joe. Really appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me, man.